Palitan na yung sa dulo, yung insert folder.
Unmuted pala. Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon po. Please stand for the national anthem. You may take your seats. Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon po. It is my honor to welcome everyone to the second Ruperto P. Alonzo lecture entitled The Nuclear Option. I am your moderator for today. My name is Layug. And I'm very honored to be in the midst of young people and mature people. So I will not call you old, not yet. The memorial lecture, held annually, honors the impactful legacy of the late scholar and visionary known to many as Sir Ruping. This lecture celebrates Sir Ruping's contributions to the field of economics and the development sector, bringing together experts, development practitioners, students, and various organizations for thought-provoking discussions such as this year's topic, the nuclear option. This event is presented to you by the UPSE Program in Development Economics Alumni Association in partnership with the Philippine Center for Economic Development. And indeed, we're very honored. I've never seen this place full of people, except during our alumni homecoming. And so, especially the young ones, I'm sure you will have questions later on. Today, it is our honor that we are joined in the Zoom by the wife of the late Ruping Alonzo, Mrs. Zoraida Amelia Mel Alonzo. Good afternoon, Ma'am Mel. Can you hear us? There you go. Good afternoon, Ma'am Mel.
Okay,
Please go
all
ahead.
right. My video, let's see.
We can see you.
Mhm.
We can see all of you, Ma'am Mel. Welcome po.
I'm sorry, I am not, let's see. Start my video.
We can see you already, ma'am. Yes, Ma'am Mel, you can deliver your opening remarks.
I can't start my video.
It's okay, ma'am. We can see you. We can see a 30-year-old lady po. So we're happy to see you,
How
Ma'am
do I
Mel.
start my video?
You're on already po. You are already on. Maybe you need to text her. Yeah. Ma'am Mel, good afternoon. We have
Hello?
about... Yes, ma'am, we can see you. All 150
Yes,
people.
can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear po. We can hear you and see you.
Okay, so I'll just continue then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry for being such an idiot with these devices. Good afternoon. My warm greetings to the Philippine Center for Economic Development, who is celebrating its golden anniversary year. My sincere congratulations to the PDE Alumni Association on its first anniversary today. Thank you for giving me time to be with you, despite my distance of 5,549 miles and in another time zone, 13 hours behind. I am Mel Capistrano Alonzo. Ruperto Alonzo and I were classmates at the MA Econ class of 1967. We were married for 48 years. I lost him 6 years ago. Today would have been his 76th birthday. The Ruperto P. Alonzo Memorial Lecture Series, conceived by his former students from various batches of the Program for Development Economics, or PDE, and wholeheartedly supported by the School of Economics, led by its dean, Joy Abrenica, is a sublime tribute. That his former students envisioned a lecture series in his name to perpetuate his legacy in development economics is a balm to me and my family as we try to grapple with the terms of having him in an unending absence. That is why I never tire in extending my gratitude to these distinguished former students who have carved their names in their chosen fields of economics, finance, and public service, among others. They were a source of pride for their erstwhile professor, Alonzo. I am with them in their vision of molding the lecture series into a platform for the dynamic discussion of current economic development issues. The first Ruperto P. Alonzo lecture, held last February 8, 2023, paved the way for the emergence of the platform being used as a dynamic area for the discussion of pressing economic issues. Finance Undersecretary Cynthia Hernandez, the Executive Director of the Philippine Center, expertly essayed the 28 years of the Build, Operate, Transfer, or BOT law and the way forward. The PPP, as we all know, has the science of project evaluation at its core. And if Professor Alonzo had been given a sobriquet in his lifetime, I believe it would have been Professor Project Evaluation. Today, for the second memorial lecture, I am very grateful for the valuable presence of Undersecretary Sharon Garin of the Department of Energy, our main lecturer this afternoon. I also would like to acknowledge the presence of the panel discussants, Mr. Bienvenido Oplas Jr., Dr. Carlo Arcilla, Mr. Paolo Pagaduan, Engineer Froilan Savet, and Engineer Lino Bernardo. Thank you very much for your time. Today's lecture focuses on the energy sector of the Philippines with the intriguing title, The Nuclear Option. I find it quite meaningful that Ruping's final research project was on energy. He spent the final 2 years of his life working with a research team of eminent economists whose output was a published book entitled The Energy Policy for the Philippines. Sadly, Ruping didn't survive to witness the publication of their book. However, his colleagues affectionately dedicated the book to him. I close these opening remarks by verbalizing what is in my heart. Thank you very much, UP School of Economics and PDE Alumni Association, for keeping Ruping's virtual presence at the School of Economics so palpable. And now, please join me in giving Undersecretary Sharon Garin a big round of applause. Before we listen to her, give us the real score on the nuclear option.
Thank you, Mamel. It's great seeing you online, and we hope to see you in person here in Manila soon. Okay, thank you. We're delighted to have everyone, both in person, no, and in Zoom. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of young people. I'm sure you were not born in the 70s yet, right? Can I see a show of hands? Were you born in the 70s? If it's no, please raise your hands. There'll be more raising your hands. Okay. Don't raise your hand. You were born then. Okay. Today, our agenda is full packed. And without further ado, let me introduce to you our main speaker, the Honorable Undersecretary Sharon Garin. Undersecretary Garin oversees the DOE's Financial Services Bureau, Legal Services Bureau, and Nuclear Energy Program Interagency Committee, and as the DOE's Legislative Liaison Officer. She is a CPA lawyer by profession, addressing legal issues and concerns pertaining to downstream and upstream conventional energy, renewable energy, electric power, nuclear power, and other areas within the energy sector, as well as overseeing the budgeting and accounting operations of the agency, improving its financial stability and overall effectiveness. In other words, USEC Sharon does not sleep anymore. USEC Sharon graduated in accounting at, of course, where else? The University of the Philippines in Iloilo, and law at the Ateneo de Manila School of Law. And she also finished her international MBA at Escuela Superior de Administración Dirección de Empresas, Spain. She spearheaded several monumental changes and improvements on the implementation of existing processes that had fostered transparency, prudence, and efficiency in the legal and financial operations of the DOE, as well as the timely formation of the amendment of the EPIRA, which is the Electric Power Industry Reform Act, the Comprehensive Nuclear Regulatory Act, the Philippine Downstream Natural Gas Industry Development Act, the Waste to Energy Act, and the amendment of Republic Act number 9367, otherwise known as Biofuels Act of 2006. It is our honor to have as our main speaker, Undersecretary Sharon Garin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually I went to high school in UP High School in Iloilo, and I went to college in the UP Iloilo, or well, Miagao now. And this is the first time I've been invited to a UP event. I'll try not to expound on the scientific and the technical part because we have experts here later that will be sitting with us. I would like to expound on the direction of the Department of Energy when it comes to nuclear power, using nuclear technology to produce electricity for the Philippines. Now we can start with the next slide, please. This will be the agenda. Now I'll start with the plan, the Philippine Energy Plan. We have currently very low in renewable energy. We also have a moratorium on coal. We also have only one pump storage facility in the Philippines, in CBK. And LNG and coal, which is coming in, which is we use as our base load, are all imported. I will show you a table later, but we have made simulations, and there are two simulations we use: the Clean Energy 1 or Clean Energy 2 scenarios. The difference between the two is that we maximize offshore wind in the second scenario and only 19 gigawatts in offshore wind in clean energy scenario. The difference is the price. It's too expensive if you maximize offshore wind. But despite the fact that World Bank says we have 178 gigawatts potential in offshore wind. So we'll base the assessment on clean energy scenario number 1. Next slide, please. As the President said, we will reach 35% by 2030 on renewable and 50% by 2040 on renewable. But we need baseload. And that's, ay, nawala siya. Dito na lang tayo. So, basically, what is the plan for nuclear energy? Today, coal is about 60%. And 98% of our coal comes from Indonesia. We have a moratorium on coal, but we do not have a moratorium on our consumption and our population growth. We need more baseload. We will need LNG, maybe, or natural gas from Malampaya, or we can use nuclear energy. Hence, we have suggested that we have 9%. If you see the violet part, that's new technology na. And that includes nuclear energy. So, in the 2023 Philippine Energy Plan, we have included scaling up of nuclear energy. We have included nuclear energy in the Philippine energy mix. Come 2032, up to 2040, up to 2050. We are quite conservative in the number of megawatts. It's only 1,200 for 2032 and another 1,200 in the following year, and doubling that up over the years. So it will, by 2040, it will be 9% of the energy mix. We can go to the next slide so they can see the numbers. Nuclear energy and other technology. This is in terawatt hours, 19.36 by 2040 and 443.9 by 2050. The translation of this installed capacity would be 1,200, 2,400, or 4,800. It will double up over time. That's the plan. And that's 2032, our objective. It's a very ambitious plan. Can we go to the next slide? Before I discuss to you what we need to do to reach that objective, I'll give you a little history of the nuclear energy in the Philippines. This is the most beautiful power plant we have that has never been used. Parang nauuna ka sa akin. Can you go back? Here. This is the Bataan nuclear power plant. It's 620 megawatts. The contractor was Westinghouse, and it's pressurized water reactor. There are many technologies, but this was the best at that time. And next slide, please. Now it's not used because of what happened here. Pwede kong tanggalin. Can I remove the mic? Because I can't see. We started the idea in 1963, and then in 1970, we had a concrete idea of what we wanted for nuclear power plant. So over the years, we developed it until we had it completed in 1985. And that's about 23 years in construction, only for Bataan nuclear power plant. Unfortunately, we had several, if you see the yellow part, those are what's happening internationally. We had the oil crisis, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl happened right after, or right sometime when we were about to open the start in Bataan nuclear power plant. And then, because Chernobyl happened, we closed it down before we opened it. And that's how significant international events are. Again, come 1990s, we were starting to feel comfortable again with nuclear power. And then in around 2007, we started talking about it. We already paid our debt of 2.3 billion for BNPP. Then on 2011, Fukushima happened. We abandoned the idea. But still, the problems keep on going. So by 2015-16, we started talking again to IAEA. I just wanted to show this, that the history, this is our 3rd try already on nuclear energy, and I hope we are more lucky this time. But that is how, it is not because of us, of what's happening in the Philippines, but the international events also affect our decision on nuclear power. Because basically, the problem of nuclear energy or nuclear technology is fear. And rightfully so. There's reason to fear, but there is reason to act on it. And we can actually prevent and have safety, security, and safeguard measures. Next slide, please. So if we continue now, we are talking about today. We started with the creation of NEPIO, which is the Nuclear Energy Program Secretariat. Started in 2016. We asked for a review of the IAEA, which is the international body that has all the regulations in starting a nuclear energy program. We started it to 2017. If you look way beyond, we received the final report in 2019. It's 2 years of review of IAEA. And then we started 2016 with NEPIO, but only then in 2022 did we get the first step for our nuclear energy program, which is the national position issued by the then President Duterte. And at the same time, around 2021, we created what is now the Nuclear Energy Program Interagency Program, Committee. So from creation to adoption, that's about 6 years. From the first mission of the IAEA to the final report, about 2 to 3 years. That's how careful the industry is. They do not rush things. They make sure that everything's safe and secure when you talk about nuclear energy. Next slide, please. This is how they work. You go through milestones. We have started with phase 1, and we have reviews, responses already from IAEA. Our objective is to reach the phase 2. It takes years. Here in the IAEA material, it takes about 10 to 15 years to do that. We're right on track. Now, next slide, please. For you to qualify, for any country to be able to push through with the nuclear energy program, it has to comply with all these 19 infrastructure issues. I don't know if it's clear there, but there should be from nuclear safety, management, funding and financing, legal framework, safeguards, radiation protection, regulatory framework. It goes on and on and on because you have to make sure that your people are ready, your people accept it. You have trained the agencies. You have trained all the emergency responses. Your grid has to be ready. You have to have funding and financing because it's the high risk. It's high risk and high capital investment. Then the fuel cycle is also a complicated part. You have to have all that ready before you even start with the program. And that is what we have been doing with NEPIA. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide na lang. So I can show na lang this one. So what we have done just recently in 2022, we started with this in 2022. We divided all the 19 functions. And each committee will be taking charge of each activity. For example, on legal framework, it's the passage of the law and all the treaties that we need to enter into. And that's headed by DOE, for example. Our experts, PNRI, is handling nuclear safety, nuclear security, safeguards, and radiation protection. They have done extensive research on this, and they have to come up with the literature in order to guide everyone who wants to apply for a power plant to follow all the safety, security, and safeguards. Siting, for example, which is headed by DOE, but it's interagency. We have PhilVox, PNRI, DOST, all the agencies. They've gone to, I think they've assessed already 20 sites, shortlisted that to 13 sites, and now they've done desktop assessment already. I'm not sure if I should show it to you, because if it's your province, you might get worried. But what the point here is that we are already doing all the homework that needs to be done for us to prepare. We have identified siting, for example, we have done desktop review, PhilVox has done their work, DNR has done their work, even DND is involved. All the agencies that are listed there have been involved, and they have already visited 3 provinces for siting assessment, for site assessment. Environmental protection, emergency planning, DND is so active on this because we have to have from the tanod up to the uniformed personnel that we have, they have to know how to respond when there's an emergency. I don't want to elaborate on this. We have a roadmap actually being wrapped up for this month, and we can show it to you, and it's explained in more detail there. But it is not an easy task to start a nuclear energy program. That is why it is slow, because we have to make sure that everything is safe, secure, safeguards, and compliant with all the international requirements. Because nobody will sell any technology or teach you about any technology if you do not comply with all these requirements of the IAEA. You cannot buy from the US, you cannot buy from Japan, or any country if you are not compliant with the international standards. So can we proceed to the next slide, please? This is the first in-air mission, and we have assessed already. I just wanted to show that we have been doing it already. This was even before my time in DOE, 2018. And it was a good score for the Philippines. Actually, because thank you for the expertise and advocacy movements of the PNRI, because they have been the leaders of this country when it comes to nuclear technology. So next slide. How do we proceed? As I mentioned earlier, we are targeting 1,200 megawatts of nuclear energy by 2032. It's one plant only. It's very conservative, but very ambitious. We can proceed to the next slide, please. We will still follow these phases, but we believe and we are confident that we can be faster because we are ready. We have been preparing for phase 2 for the last 2 years and even the years before that, and we are working hard that we can have the preparatory work for the contracting and construction of a nuclear power plant after a policy decision has been taken. This is where you develop all your agencies, you train all your agencies, and you create the regulatory commission. So we are hoping to reach phase 2 so that after that we can reach the construction side. Next slide, please. So this is how you will see it. 2023 is today. Well, today, 24 na. Our ambition is to have 1,200 by 2032. If you do the math, that's 8 years from now. Construction, if it is not Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, will be hopefully 4 years. Some say 5 years. UAE took about 14 years. So it depends on if we can do it on budget and on time. If you give it 4 years, the regulatory compliance, which is what the law is about, the bill is about, that's being deliberated in the Senate, They have to review your construction design, your materials, your procurement, transportation, even the whole fuel cycle. They will assess that just to make sure that the first and any other power plant in the Philippines is safe, secure, and has safeguards. We have to build the most perfect possible nuclear power plant on their first try. And we have to be very sure. That's why 4 years, I'm not sure if it's enough, but we will try to do so. We have already experts here, but we also have to train more experts to fill up the plantilla of our new regulatory commission. So if you have a regulatory compliance na by 2025, you start assessing na. You have to do so much work before you even reach that. So I go back to 2024. We have already included it, going on the top, included in nuclear energy mix. We already reconvened the NEPIAC. The law passed the lower house, is now in the Senate. The negotiations of the international agreements, where we just finished the 123 agreement, and now we're waiting for the Korean agreement. And some more countries are interested in the Philippines because we have announced our interest in nuclear energy. And we are wrapping up the nuclear energy roadmap, which will be already finished, but we're still editing until today, and hopefully within February we can publish it already. The roadmap actually explains how many engineers do you need, where will you get your technology, what sites are possible, what is the criteria for those sites. All of those will be explained in the roadmap on what we need to do. So we had the capacity to build a nuclear power plant in our country. So we have done this, but we have so much to do until we can regulate an application. First and foremost, enactment of the law that will govern the regulation of nuclear energy. It is still in the Senate. I think it is still under technical working group. We are waiting for our deliberations, and hopefully it will be passed by this year. Pagdasal nyo na lang. We cannot start a nuclear energy program without the governing law. That's really a must, because we need to make sure that it is safe, secure, and has safeguards. Our second task is we need an in-air mission review. That will take time. We are currently drafting already communications with them so we can prepare for the next in-air mission. Hopefully we can push for them to come this year and get the results by next year. This, if you do not pass this, the review of the IAEA, then you cannot start a nuclear energy program. A publication of the nuclear energy roadmap, this has been finished already, it just needs cleaning up, maybe within the month. With the international commitments, there are so many treaties and also so many MOUs that we need to enter in order for us to be able to purchase any of their technology, or in fact get trainings from them, so that we can have cooperation with those countries that already have experience. Creation of a regulatory body, we need the law, but other than the law, we need also to find them a building, find them people, make their organization, give them budget. That will take a while. And that we have to do before we can even start with the regulatory compliance. And the rest is the hard work. We have to do our public communications. We need to do all the trainings which schools can offer, engineering on nuclear engineering, how many welders, how many carpenters, how many construction workers do we need. That has been mapped out in the nuclear energy roadmap, and we plan to start implementing that. It doesn't have to be in 2024, because it's a long way until 2032. But we have to be, we are making sure that by 2032, what we need, we already have. And that's the whole perspective of our nuclear energy program. It is ambitious, but I think it is doable. They always doubt that if we are capable of doing this, that if we have the intelligence or the experience or the capacity. And I do believe we do. Because I have seen PNRI, DOST, PhilVox, they all work. There are we have some of the world-class scientists here in the country. And in fact, if you don't know yet, the best nuclear power plant today is the one in UAE, the most recent, with no limits on budget. 98% of the workforce that built the best nuclear power plant in the world are Filipinos. We have the best workforce. We can be ready. So I do hope, as DOE will not prefer any technology from the other. We will not say SMR is better than conventional. We will not say that renewable is better than nuclear. But we do believe that nuclear should be part of the energy mix of the Philippines in the future. For energy security and to make sure that we are not dependent, whether there's another international event that happens that will affect our electricity prices, we need to make sure that our prices are our prices, that we are not subject to whatever is the political whim of any other country, that we have our own energy source. And one of that is nuclear energy. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you, Yusek Sharon. We can see from the timeline, they're fast-tracking it. No? In fact, my question is why only now? No, we've been in this situation so many years before, but now we're seeing, at least under this administration, it's moving forward. No? But I will ask that question later to our guests, no? Because especially I see Doc Caloy, no? Who has been at the forefront of nuclear push. No? And I had hoped that maybe we would have our first plant already by now, no? Because so many studies have been undertaken in the past. No? Anyway, I'll reserve that when we do the discussions later. All right. We will be joined today, no, by very distinguished panel members. And I'd like to introduce each one of them. But the first one will come up here to the stage to deliver a presentation to give us all the data we need to know. All right, especially for the young ones, because you were not born yet, no, way back in the 70s. Our first distinguished panel member is Mr. Bienvenido Oplas Jr., otherwise known as Nonoy. He's a columnist, a prolific columnist for Business World. He contributes to My Cup of Liberty since April 2015 with over 770 articles featuring tables and charts. He is also the president of Minimal Government Thinkers, a free market think tank, and a former columnist for Interaction.com. Nonoy published 2 books, Health Choices and Responsibilities in 2011, and Liberalism, Rule of Law and Civil Society in 2014. He holds a degree in AB Economics and completed the program in Development Economics at the UP School of Economics. In his diverse career, Nonoy worked in TV production and joined the Congressional Planning and Budget Office from 1991 to 1999. He later joined the private consulting firm Think Tank from 2000 to 2005. So without further ado, Nonoy, your Econ alumni are watching and looking forward to your presentation now. A round of applause for Nonoy, please.
Use this. Thank you. My presentation is mostly numbers, okay? Don't look at me, look at the table because I have to do it very fast. So I'm a former student of Sharon Alonzo. In fact, he was my wedding godfather. Godfather, Ninong. So, The nuclear option. The first is nuclear energy and UPSE RPA PD lecture, my column last month, no, where I announced this. And the second, the nuclear option to energize growth, is my column today. Okay? So, these are my affiliations. I don't have last slide for the conclusion, it's the front. So, takeaway message. The main goal is growth. Okay? So, this is mainly my field is economics. So I talk about economics. So, my passion is growth. And ample supply of stable, reliable energy at competitive price is the key. Second, nuclear energy is needed. And I will show in the table, decarbonizing countries turn less to solar wind and more to nuclear energy. And oil, gas, coal demand is stable, partially stable, but nuclear demand is higher, uranium prices are all-time high and still rising. Next. Ito na. So, puro table ito ha, hanggang matapos. So, power gen, this is my column in last January 18. So, I divided the countries into three, no? The group A, the G7 countries, except Italy, they don't have nuclear. The group B are the other European countries, outside the G7, and Group C are the Asians. Okay? So, G7, nuke generation plateaued or decreased and experienced low or declining growth, especially Japan, UK, and Germany. Second, France is still the most nuke-intensive country in the world. So if people are scared of nuclear, look at France. Up to 80% of their power generation is from nuclear, and they have zero accident. UK, the first nuclear plant was built in 1956. 1965, 15.1 terawatt hour of UK is from nuclear. China, India, Pakistan are the newbies and ramping up nuke and help them keep high growth at 4 to 6% from 2011 to 2022. Korea, Taiwan started nuke early, but Taiwan shifted more to gas and denuclearized. And had slow growth. I added here, if the Philippines BNPP was allowed in 1985, then it could have, theoretically, it could have contributed 4.62 terawatt hour per year. You compare that, the total generation of wind plus solar in 2022 was only 2.9 terawatt hour combined, including biomass, maybe about 4 terawatt hour. BNPP alone can give 4.6 trillion terawatt hour. Next. Yes, my column today. Nuclear power generation and GDP average growth. So I'm always connecting how the utilization of nuclear in relation to the economic performance of countries. Almost all major industrial countries except Italy were powered by nuke from the 1960s and 1970s. I said 1965, UK has 15.1 terawatt hour. Nuke is generally safe, cheap, and highly reliable. Since the 1970s, there's only one major nuke accident. That is Chernobyl, 1986. 3 Mile Island, I think there's no fatality there. The Fukushima accident has zero fatality. Okay? And more Asians turning to nuke from 2002 to 2022, the nuclear generation, China 25 terawatt hour to 418 terawatt hour. Korea 119 to 176 terawatt hour. India from 19 to 46. United Arab Emirates, a major oil and gas producer, has zero nuclear in 2019. By 2022, 22.3. 20 terawatt hour in Pakistan, 22 terawatt hour. Many countries that started the nuclearization experienced slower growth. France, UK, DE, Spain, Japan, and US. Next. Here, my topic about coal and nuclear power as growth drivers. So, from the table, decarbonizing the coal and the nuclear power countries experience significant slowdown in GDP growth, bordering on degrowth and deindustrialization. Carbonizing, on the other hand, rising coal and rising nuke power consuming countries experience flat or increased economic growth. India and Philippines are the developing countries, still have very low coal use per capita. Here, for instance, our coal use per capita is only 1.6 megajoules per capita compared to Czech Republic, 82, United States, 66, no? Ang liit-liit ng coal per capita natin. So, data in terawatt hours from Energy Institute, Statistical Review of World Energy, economic data from the IMF World Economic Outlook. Next. Why we need nuclear energy? Badly. Because until 2020, if going to increase from 2008, where the RA law was first enacted until 2022, the net contribution of wind, solar, biomass, natural gas, hydro, geothermal, all of them were either flat or very small. So if we're going to rely on all of them, Philippines will have massive daily blackout. The only one that saved the Philippines from daily Earth hour is coal. And coal is being demonized and being, the brownfield, the greenfield or new plant is being killed. Only brownfield or those existing plants you can expand. So if we are going to have, we cannot rely on all of them and then coal is killed. So that's why nuclear is needed very badly. And I think that it's good that Garin has already provided that there is hope that hopefully by 2028, the first nuclear plant will be constructed. Next. Ito. Here, global energy prices, data as of yesterday, okay? From February 2021 to February 2024, clockwise. So, oil is cheap, declining, cheaper than pre-Ukraine invasion. On the right, gas is also cheap. Coal is also cheap. The only one that's going rise is uranium. Okay? So, the fossil fuel is cheap. Uranium is rising. Next. Energy price index, clockwise. Solar is declining. Also data as of yesterday, February 21 of February 2024 until February 7. So that's the trend for the last 3 years. Declining, wind also declining. In fact, a lot of big wind projects are being withdrawn. Kasi mahal eh. Hindi papayag yung hindi pamayag yung ibang states, no? Also, the EU carbon permits is also declining. And look at the nuclear energy index up. I think I noted that what triggered is the COP meeting in Dubai. When the wording there is the transition away from coal, so countries will be going away from coal, but not solar and wind, but they will go to nuclear. So the big uptick in nuclear occurred in October, November, December, until today. Next. Last. About anti-nuke due to climate. Come on, relax. There is no rising storms, only fluctuation every few years. So on the data here from 1978 to December 2023, it's a matter of up, down, up, down. Okay? Some years you have lots of storms. Some years you have few storms. Okay? It's a cycle. And no scary ice melt, saying that our Arctic is melting. True, but Arctic is also growing. So every year, from the data from Japan Aerospace Exploration Age 1978 up to 2023. And then the El Nino La Nina, we have experience from the triple dip La Nina. The last time, it's a rare event. The last time there was triple dip La Nina was 2011. And by NOAA projection, the current El Nino will end by May this year and go back to La Nina by July. So I think I'm done. Huh? Thank you.
Thank you, Nonoy. One key takeaway, one word, relax. No? That's what I gathered from Nonoy. You know, Nonoy is known to be a database guy, no? So it's good that he's in the panel. All right, let me introduce the other members of the panel, and you can now join me on stage, right, as we begin the discussions. No? Our next panel member, of course, is known to everybody, Mr. Nuclear Guy himself. No? I've known Dr. Caloy Arcilla 12 years ago when we were just 20 years old, right, Doc? And we're now only 35. Dr. Caloy Arcilla is an accomplished geologist and a visionary leader with a PhD from the University of Illinois at Chicago. As the director of the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute and former director of the National Institute of Geological Sciences, he has led pioneering projects in nuclear medicine, mining, and environmental applications. Recognized as one of the top 100 scientists in Asia, his students have graduated from the best universities in the world and established businesses in drilling, gemstones, chemical analysis, and natural alkaline water production. Doc, please join us on stage. I'll give you time later to speak. Our next member is Mr. Paolo Pagaduan, the Renewable Energy and Just Transition Senior Lead, Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development. Just to clarify, this is not about renewables, no? Because Nonay was referring to it earlier. No? Mr. Pagaduan is a passionate conservationist who has devoted over 2 decades of his life to environmental campaigns in the Philippines and Asia, aiming for a harmonious coexistence between humanity and the planet. His journey began by organizing fisherfolk communities in Pangasinan, promoting community-based coastal resources management. With 16 years at WWF Philippines, he focused on coastal resources, ridge-to-reef management, and water and watershed management. Currently serves as senior lead for renewable energy at the Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development, a regional alliance of people's movements, community organizations, coalitions, NGOs, and networks. So please join us here, Paolo, who is a certified scuba diver. Welcome, Paolo. Our next panel member is Engineer Froilan Savet, the first Vice President and Head of Networks from Meralco. Engineer Froilan is currently the first Vice President and Head of Networks at the largest distribution utility in the Philippines. He possesses extensive expertise in electric power, covering planning, project management, substation standards, design, construction, and distribution connections, with focus on variable renewable energy and embedded generation interconnection. He is a sought-after technical resource speaker at conventions and seminars regionally. As the Philippines representative in the heads of ASEAN Power Utilities Authority, he led the development of guidelines on interconnection of distributed energy resources, DER, which is now being implemented by the ERC. Acknowledged as an ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineer, he received the UPAE Professional Degree in Electrical Engineering in 2023 for his outstanding achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us, Engineer Froy. And finally, of course, Nonoy, please join us here on stage. And finally, one of our final member of the panel is Engineer Felino Lino Bernardo, the Head of Special Projects from Aboitiz Power. Lino is the Head of Energy Transition Projects, and he leads the Nuclear Development Initiatives and other energy transition projects. With Aboitiz Power since 2015, he previously served as COO for the Thermal Business Group, overseeing the oil and coal business units, project development, asset management, and the group's entry into liquefied natural gas, or LNG. Lino, you have already LNG? Not yet. You're about to. About to, all right. Lino is a graduate, of course, of the University of the Philippines here in Diliman, with a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering, EE, eng na eng, right? His extensive leadership experience includes notable contributions to the growth of coal and geothermal business units, Additionally, attended the Strategic Economic Program from the University of Asia and the Pacific and the OMP Leadership Development Program and the IMD in Lausanne, Switzerland. Lino, please join us on stage. All right, I'll join you in the middle. And you have microphones on your side. All right, let me start the ball rolling. Let me start with Doc Caloy. Now, I'll give you 2 minutes, Doc Caloy, and just any reaction to the presentation of Nonoy, and maybe share a little bit of your experience for the last so many years. No?
First, I have to acknowledge, under the leadership of Paolo and Garin, the nuclear program has never moved as fast. So, and I've been following this for a long time. When President Duterte signed the executive order. But let me just say why we want to go nuclear. Nonoy has said the main reasons. The main reasons really is this: 50%, as the Undersecretary has said, 50% or 60% of our energy comes from coal, and 98% comes from Indonesia. And then Malampay is running out, so our base load is under threat. Geothermal is maxed out. There are only too many volcanoes that you can tap. And so there's really no choice but to go nuclear. Two important things in nuclear. One is energy density. Because people ask me, bakit ka mag-nuclear? Marami naman tayong wind. Nuclear has 4 million times more energy than all the rest. 4 million times. And that's because of E is equal to mc squared. Okay? And then second, capacity factor. Nuclear plants are 92% available. So they're wind and solar at best 30%. So wind and solar should not be made to compete with nuclear. Nuclear can back up wind and solar. That's all for now, and then maybe we can go 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, Doc Aloy, thank you for that. Just to clarify also, under the Philippine Energy Plan, the renewables target is only 50%. In other words, we have to fill up the remaining 50%. No? So that's what we are talking about here. So it's not really a competition between renewables and nuclear. No? Unless Paul says otherwise. Paul, I'll give you 2 minutes to react.
Okay. Thank you. Unfortunately, I'm the only representative coming from the CSO sector, and unfortunately, I'm the only panel member who is not as keen into pursuing nuclear energy for several reasons. No? I will not go into the technicalities or the, as Dr. Caloy is saying, the energy densities or the demands or whatever, because that's their field of expertise. But I was hoping that the plan would be a bit faster. Because if there's one thing that's not being highlighted now, is that the reason why we have to do all of these, why we have to shift to renewables, why we have to consider using nuclear energy is because of the climate crisis in the first place. We have to acknowledge that, because without it, then we could have just continue with coal and oil or gas. But it's not the reality now. We have to stop. A lot of the young people know here. Many of my young friends have decided not to get married, not to have children, because they cannot envision a future where you're raising a kid in a situation where, because of the climate emergency. It's a reality, so I have to stress that. It's real and it's something. That's why we're shifting to renewables and possibly nuclear. Okay, that's the setting. Unfortunately, 10 years down the line, earliest, 8 years at the earliest, is 8 years, 10 years too late. At the COP20, I was there at the COP28, and the decision there, the global decision, the first one was that there's a need to triple renewable energy, and the second half of that is doubling energy efficiency, which would reduce the total demand down the line. Okay? So there were 118 countries who signed up to that pledge, okay? Unfortunately, the Philippines was not part of that. So were China, India, and a lot of other Asian countries. But only 22 signed up for the pledge on nuclear energy expansion. Because the real trend is that everybody's going renewable and not nuclear. So what I'm saying is that 10 years down the line is too long, because that's 10 years too late because of our climate emergency now. I would rather that we have put those resources into installing new solar and wind, which are ready now, even for base load, given you have to add the storage, as in the case of Hawaii or Portugal. But the point is, we have all the framework for that. We don't need to wait for new laws. Don't need to wait for new facilities. Next year, we can have more power plants if we decide to. Okay? Nuclear, waiting for 10 years down the line is too long. That would be too late given the climate emergency.
All right, thank you, Paul. Froy, any reaction to Nonoy's presentation first, no, before we discuss other matters?
Thank you, Attorney Jay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very interesting presentation. No, actually, we believe that for us to attain energy transition, our sustainability agenda, we need a stable and reliable source of power. And that is nuclear. No? Nuclear will not replace RE, but it would actually complement RE, no, in the future. So you need a baseload plan with a high capacity factor, as mentioned by Dr. Kaloy, with high energy density. Imagine a 1 gram of uranium is equivalent to many tons of coal, no? And 1,800 liters of oil. So just imagine that. In terms of scalability, space efficiency, and reliable and stable power, then nuclear is the way to go. In fact, last year, our chairman entered into a cooperation agreement with USNC, Ultra Safe Nuclear Corporation. It is a US-based company involved in the deployment of micro-modular reactor. So we believe that it's better to connect MMR, no, in the distribution system, no, because of its small capacity. 10 megawatts, 20 megawatts, the associated connection asset is relatively cheaper compared to a large-scale power plant connecting to the transmission grid. Alam naman natin ngayon, di ba? We cannot energize solar plant, wind plant, because no transmission asset. Di ba? No transmission, no energy transition.
Thank you, Froy. Of course, Froilan is from Meralco, no? So he only distributes power. So I'm looking at Lino. Lino, when do you plan to build the first nuclear plant? No? You've now shouted to the entire Philippines, no, that Aboitiz will take that lead, no, because you're here.
Oh, thank you, Jay. But before that, I'd like to thank the organizers for having me here today. You know, thoughts in my mind as I was listening to Yusek Garin and to Noy. This is a great discussion, right? Because this is very important. I think having facts on the table, having different sides, this conversation is part of our education, right? And you're part of the decision. I'm very glad that you are here. But by the way, young people, please do get married. Don't be like my children, no? They're still not getting married, but for a different reason. But because you're part of it, you will be involved, right? And many of you here are economists. And you know, this is fantastic. Nuclear or energy, it's complex, but let me try to explain it in a bit. It's the agglomeration of everything: economics, physics, supply chain, politics, and everything. The complexity of electricity is you have to balance everything every nanosecond. Supply and demand has to be balanced, right? So we're talking about, again, I'm not sure, I don't think this is what you meant. No, we can stop coal now, but then forget about air conditioning, forget about lights, forget about hospitals. You can't do that. So it has to be a managed transition, right? So let me just inject a couple of things from Aboitiz Power. Our commitment really is to make sure that we have affordable, and this is not necessarily in the order of importance, affordable, secure, reliable, and with least impact to the environment. And it's quite difficult to balance all these things together. Do realize that, because investments in power takes a lot of time, and it's a deregulated business, right? So the life of a plant is about 25 years, regular. Nuclear plants can last up to 40, 50, 60 years. It's a different kind of economics. High capex, low running cost. Coal, middle capex, middle cost, right? Running cost because of fuel. Gas plant, cheap to build, but the fuel is quite expensive or volatile, right? So, but these are just the cost of capex and running costs. We are not yet talking about externalities, impact to the environment, impact to health, right? And maintaining the balance of the grid, system costs. So you have to take all this into consideration. You're economists, and I hope some of you here will take that inspiration to look at really the long-term costs, because you will bear it. Energy is very important. Economic growth is highly, highly correlated with the growth in capacity in electricity. So if we're just going to grow by 4% annually, para tayong choo-choo train, right? So we need a lot of capacity. We need to drive these costs down. We need to make sure that investors are investing, and we need to work together. The government, the private sector, and you, no? Because you're important. You have a vote here. You will be the ones responsible for making sure that we run this safely. Number one, full stop. It has to be safe. It has to be reliable. It has to be affordable. And fourth, it has to be friendly to the environment.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Lino. No? You mentioned one word which I think everyone needs an answer to: safety.
Number one.
All right. So let me ask Nonoy, based on data, international data, how safe is nuclear, based on what you've seen worldwide?
I checked, I think Wikipedia. I totaled the number of death, no, reported death from 1970s up to today. Everything from Chernobyl to 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, etc. Less than 50. May nahulog na bus, marami pang patay. Isa-isang bus, kisa buong ano. So I think that the issue of safety is a bit bloated. I want to add something about RE. As an economist, I'm observing the economic performance of Germany, UK, France, etc. I'm laughing because the more they go into RE, the more they go into degrowth and deindustrialize. Germany last year was negative 0.2%. UK 0.9%, France, okay. So I think now the Italians are here because they shoot themselves in the foot having too many RE. Now they knock on the that's why Philippines, we should have more coal and more nuclear, because the Europeans fleeing their country to do business, they should come here. We should have faster nuclear, but we should avoid what they have been doing. Otherwise, sabihin nila, kaya kami umalis ng Europe dahil sa RE nyo, tapos dito mag-RE kayo, blackout nyo kami. We might as well go to Vietnam. So that we should have change in policy.
Okay, thank you. Nono, I'll go back to you, Lino. Your fellow alumni from UP School of Economics SI, no? Hello to Mian Alintahan. Mag-attend ka daw ng alumni homecoming natin. All right. Let me go back to, Lino wants to add to safety, no? Because Nonoy said only 50 people, no? Based on worldwide, yung 50 nahulog sa bangin. Is that what you say? No, but Lino, you want to add to safety?
Right,
And
so-
then I'll ask Doc Aloy.
Yeah, so any one of you can Google it. So the measure for safety is deaths per terawatt hour of operations, right? And I forget the number. The numbers are 0.02 for nuclear. It's about same for hydro, nuclear, and solar. They're the three lowest. They're the safest, no? So in terms of other technologies, but you can check it for yourself. So very low incidence.
All right. Doc Aloy, how safe is nuclear? And you've been at the forefront of all studies, Doc Aloy. Mukha ka ng nuclear, actually.
Ganito, being a teach professor, I'll pass around. This is an example, and not a real, of a fuel of the Crisco nuclear power plant. Okay, walang uranium to, 2%. This is the equivalent of 3 tons of coal. Balik nyo lang, but pass it around to demonstrate energy density.
So Doc Aloy is now distributing a nuclear
No.
weapon, no? Radioactive.
This is the big problem when lawyers start to change the words.
Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
Anyway,
But Doc,
about safety,
what's that?
Okay, what about safety? As Engineer Pineda said, total the number of terawatt hours and divide by the number of deaths, and you will see nuclear is very, very, very low. Ang pinakamaraming namatay ay nandun sa Chernobyl. And Chernobyl, let me talk about the 3 accidents. Kasi yan ang palagi eh. Let's talk about first, 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island, no one died. Alam niyo po yung opisina ko dyan, nasa neighbors natin, yung itlog. It's the egg. Natakpan na ngayon ng ano yan eh, ng Technohub. But that is called a containment structure. The purpose of that, because we have a research reactor there. The research reactor there has been there for almost 60 years. The nuclear fuel in the research reactor is 10 times richer than a nuclear power plant. Hindi nyo alam yan, but small amounts. It has been safe.
It's there.
Yes, it's
in the egg.
there. Yes, in the egg, inside the egg.
Okay.
Hindi, wag yung hen, yung egg lang. Okay. So, it's been there. And then, so it stopped working in 1988, but the fuel was still there. So we're being inspected by the IAEA because of the fuel. Then our scientists said, sayang yung fuel, why don't we repurpose it? So use some of the fuel and make another smaller research reactor. So we made a Philippine-designed, Philippine-made, mostly Filipina nuclear scientists. The research reactor was finished. Last year, it started operating. It's the world's first subcritical research reactor. So who people who say, hindi tayo handa, that's it. That's very safe. IAEA inspected that. Okay. Now, anong nangyari dun sa Soviet Union? I make a distinction between Soviet Union at saka Russia. Yung mga Soviet nuclear plants, wala silang containment structure. They don't believe in that. So there was an accident, you share the accidents. It's a communist design, you share everything, including accidents. Sorry for the, for the political. But that's what's happened there. Wala silang containment structure, and they did an experiment inside the reactor. Totally not permissible with the IAEA. Okay, then let's talk about Fukushima. And then one of the things, I'm passionate about this, there was a communist regime. Nagkaroon po ng accident sa Chernobyl. They did not warn their people. You know, when there is an accident, the first thing you need to do is inform the public for safety. They did not warn the people. Did you know how the Chernobyl accident was discovered? Maswerte na yung hangin, hindi papuntang Kiev, papunta doon sa Siberia. It crossed the whole, the radioactive cloud crossed. Tapos dumating doon sa Sweden. Sweden has a nuclear plant, and when it reached Sweden, their alarm sounded. So they thought their nuclear plant was leaking. So they checked it, said, there's nothing wrong. The air is coming from Russia. And then they called them. Doon lang inamin. That's why tama si Yusek, the regulatory has to be independent. Because it should not be under political pressure. Pag may problema, hinto, whether may brownout o hindi. That's very important. So, then yung last yung Fukushima na lang, kasi tatanungin din yan. Nangyari sa Fukushima. Fukushima, Japan has 55 nuclear plants. Fukushima is the oldest. It's older than our Bataan nuclear plant. The seismic rating of Fukushima is 0.18 G. Si Bataan nuclear plant is 0.4 G. Our Bataan nuclear plant is 3 times stronger than the Fukushima plant. They had a magnitude 9 earthquake, which we have never had in the Philippines. Bakit? Earthquakes, magnitude is proportional to the contiguous length of the fault. Ang fault sa Pilipinas ay segmented. So, hindi nag-accumulate yun. Sa Japan, tuloy-tuloy. Magnitude 9, the plant in Japan was not destroyed by the earthquake. This is important to understand. They put the control rods, huminto na yung nuclear power, but then mainit pa. They have to cool it down by circulating water. The circulating water is the diesel engines, what they put in the basement. Tsunami comes in, floods the basement. So wala nang cooling.
That's a movie, Doc. We saw it in the
Anyway,
movie.
so pagsabungan, ang problema kasi doon, winarningan na sila.
Yeah.
They were warned. They would have cost $40 million to shift it. What I'm saying is that, why will that not happen to BNPP? BNPP's elevation is 18 meters above the tsunami, and every 440 nuclear plant in the world did a Fukushima stress test. This is just to emphasize na nakpraning talaga. It's, if you talk about safety in nuclear, it is really,
Not an issue.
it's paranoia almost, you know.
Okay. But Doc, you're talking about how big is that nuclear, what do you call that?
Fuel.
The fuel that
Oh.
is now kept in the egg. How big is that? How much can that produce in terms of megawatts?
No.
Kilowatt lang
kilowatts
yan.
lang yan. Di pa
Okay.
nga kilowatts. Oh.
And if we build a 621 megawatt nuclear plant,
Okay.
how many eggs will we see around that area?
If you, okay, BNPP, we have already, by the way, the fastest way to go nuclear is to rehabilitate BNPP. Anyway, that's my...
That's another debate
Yes,
to
another
happen.
debate.
All right.
But anyway, the fuel of the BNPP will fit inside a jeepney, extended jeepney. Ganyan ka konti.
And BNPP is how many megawatts?
620 megawatts.
600. So you need one jeepney.
One jeepney size fuel, ipapasok mo yun doon, it will last for 18 months.
Where do you keep the jeepney?
No, the jeepney was just there as a size.
No, but somebody,
No,
you
no
have to park
problem.
that jeepney somewhere.
No.
Right?
Until you activate it, nuclear fuel is safe. So let's say pag nalagay mo na yung fuel doon, 18 months wala ka nang gagawin. Ang reactors ng nuclear plants is boring kasi 18 months wala kang isusubo. So 18 months then zero emissions. Alam niyo yung cost ng nuclear fuel for 18 months? $30 million.
All right.
If that were a coal plant running for 18 months, 620 megawatts, you would require about 50 Panamax ships. Importation cost, $800 million. Kailangan pa bang i-memorize yan?
Okay. All right. Now that you mentioned cost, no, actually this debate will be moot and academic. If at the end of the day, remember under the current DOE rules, for Meralco to enter into a power supply agreement, they need to conduct CSP, competitive selection process, bidding. In fact, Meralco went through bidding recently, 1,800 megawatts. The winning bids came from coal at 6.8 pesos per kilowatt hour. Anyone among the panel members, how cheap would be nuclear? Because it cannot, unless it can compete, then it becomes a moot and academic issue, right? Lino, you want to answer that?
So again, I think I mentioned it earlier. Cost is relative, right? So the simplistic answer is capital cost, running cost, fuel, right? But I think Noy mentioned about stability of the grid. That's externality. Other issues, environment. You have to consider all those costs. Now, and the thing is, I should mention this, it will also depend on the regulations, right? On what technology will be approved, what are the construction requirements by the regulating body. Because the range now is, and I'll talk about, I'm not sure whether the audience is familiar with the levelized cost of electricity. But it's a range, no? If you look at what has been built, it's ranging from $50 US per megawatt hour to $150 US per megawatt hour. But that is again dependent on the country, the availability of the supply chain, availability of technology, who do you partner with. Points that USEC Garin mentioned. It's the quality of planning, right? The interest rates, right? So talking about interest rate, or discount rate, if you use a discount rate of 3%, which is low, based on what studies show, nuclear is the cheapest. If you have a discount rate of 7%, then it's middling. Now, if your discount rate is about 10% or north of it, then it becomes expensive. Because the driver of, one of the major driver of costs in nuclear is really about interest and how fast you can complete it. So if you take longer, you have delays, obviously, and if you have a high interest rate, then it will cost you quite a lot. So unfortunately, you cannot answer it specifically, but it really depends on how good you plan, the availability of supply chain, and regulatory.
Yeah, from what I heard from Lino, it's 6 pesos per kilowatt hour, no, Lino? More or less.
Everything, if the DOE and the ERC will come
Right?
together.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, Meralco cannot enter into a PSA if nuclear offer would be higher than 6.8.
The number of years that you contract, no? They can only contract 15, huh? 15.
It would depend on the term of reference. For
Okay.
example, if going to consider the life of coal, which is 20 to 30 years, and if we're going to compare that to nuclear with life of 50 years, then definitely hindi mananalo yung nuclear. But if we consider the economic life of nuclear, then competitive siya in terms of LCOE. High upfront cost, but stable operating cost and low fuel cost.
Sorry, so you're saying for it to work, it has to be a 50-year contract,
Yes.
long term.
Apples to apples comparison.
Okay, so 50-year contract, because right now most of your
10,
TORs
15 years.
are 10 to 15, but actually 20 years,
Yeah,
no?
15 years.
I see my friend from ERC. I'm about to ask her approval for a 50-year contract. Director Sharon is here, no? Acknowledging, no? Who actually heads the renewables, no? For ERC. But Yusek Sharon, would you allow that, the terms of reference on a 50-year, or maybe ERC, would you allow a 50-year power supply agreement? No? Okay, everyone's just shaking their heads, no? For now, no? But that's one thing that we need to put in place, because all these issues will be moot and academic. If anyway, nuclear, as everyone is saying, is actually cheaper. I have not seen that. If I Google it, it's not. That's why I keep asking. No? Yes, Doc Aloy. And I think Paul would like to add to that.
We have a Balik scientist from the University of California, Berkeley, who's studying LCOE. If you compare the Western world's cost of nuclear, sabi nga ni Lino, the construction costs are long delays. That will add to the cost. That's why, for example, the U.S. and the U.S. Vogtle plant, the British plants are so expensive. But, for example, the UAE, Korea built those nuclear plants, 4 nuclear plants, 4 years, 5 years. Their costs are much lower. China is the fastest growing nuclear country in the world, but they've only exported it to Pakistan, but their costs are unbelievably low because they have mastered the supply chain. They're starting to act. So that's the issue, you know.
Assuming we have a perfect setup, no, in the Philippines. I'm still looking for that price. No? Kasi we're seeing a lot of variables.
Yeah,
right?
the study will come out. Hopefully, it will be published. But then it's only one. But until we make an offer, but the Western, it's true that the Western nuclear plants are expensive. In fact, that's what the basis of Lazard. Lazard has done a lot of LCOEs. That's why nuclear is expensive according to their studies, because it's based mostly on the Western plants.
On the Western plants.
On the Western plants. If we did a study on Asian plants, China and then Korea,
they're cheaper.
Oh yeah. All
right. Because I have no problem with this government making it happen. They have been doing that. For example, for offshore wind, they're promising a lot of things: infrastructure, ports, transmission line. They will do it for nuclear if only nuclear will say, I'm the cheapest among all the base load. That's what we're looking for. Because Meralco always, when is your next tender for base load? You just had 1,800.
In 2028.
All right, 2028. That's why in the diagram of USEC Sharon, that's when construction will happen, supposedly, 2028. No? So that's how many megawatts will you put up for bidding?
800 to...
That's too small. No? I'm sure nuclear would want bigger than that.
No, kasyang-kasya si BNPP doon.
Okay, BNPP. All right. Okay, Lino. But before Lino, let me ask Paul, before I forget this topic on cost. No? I heard Paul say, let's get more renewables in. No? Paul, I'm also green-minded, right? Because I'm also pro-renewables. But I recognize that even government, that we can only reach 50%, right? But you're saying we can fill it up all with renewables if we have battery storage, right? Well, we know you probably went through all the data as well. Battery is still expensive compared to the conventional fuels. How do we address that?
So again, I'd like to stress now, we have to phase out the fossil fuel. And I'm saying phase out, I'm not saying stop tomorrow, stop today. There has to be a rapid, equitable, and just transition to an energy system that does not rely on fossil fuel if we want to stop the climate crisis. Okay? That should be clear. That should be the baseline of the argument here. So fossil fuel will be out faster in some other countries, not the Philippines in general, but the world has to phase out the fossil fuels. That's clear, no? So the second is that because we don't have that, we have to transition to a new energy system. So that's the just transition that we're trying to push here, no? That it includes not just generation, it also includes distribution, transmission, consumption, because the other half of the COP28 promise was that we have to be better at using energy in the first place. If we do that, we won't require as much energy. But that's very hard to do, especially in a room with people selling electricity. It's the same thing with water. No? We don't want, nobody's saying use less water. But like, I understand the need for the energy security. And if everything else was equal, no subsidies for fuel, for fossil fuel, everything for nuclear would be in place and everything like that. One thing that will not change with renewable energies is the cost of fuel. No, I showed price of uranium, probably even plutonium will increase. Volatile, all fossil fuel, wind will not change, solar will not change. Maybe the materials, the supply will change, but even, Dr. said, it actually went all the way down because of the Asian experience with China leading the way. So all signals are actually pointing to the direction of what the world agreed on in December in COP28, that we're going renewable, we'll triple the world capacity, we're going to improve energy efficiency so we won't need as much energy. 118 countries agreed to that versus 22 on nuclear. So I'm just saying that that's the trend, okay? And there's the need. And now, for that future to happen, it has to be, we have to consider some changes in the narrative. First, with the base load scenario, is that the assumption was that fossil fuel and other base load energies are reliable when they're actually not as reliable as we'd like to think. No? When a coal plant shuts down, we get power problems in Metro Manila because emergency shutdowns, and there's no way for any of those coal plants to come online to fill in the energy gap because it takes a long time for them to start up again. Diba? It's the technology. So the baseload argument is, in a way, kind of outdated if you're looking at a new energy system that is more responsive to the changes in the whole system and not just energy generation. That's why the storage comes into place, because storage, which has also gone down and still going down, the cost of storage, is actually what's going to counter the claim against intermittency of solar. And Hawaii is doing it, Portugal has done it. So the point is, the direction should be towards that direction and no longer about ensuring that there's this imaginary base load that we have to maintain for the whole country when we can work with several systems like more democratized, decentralized systems. Maybe Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao can do it separately. It doesn't have to be the current system that we have. That's why we're saying that there should be a rapid and equitable just transition to that system without fossil fuel and 100% renewable energy.
Okay, Paul. The DOE is doing that now. They went for auction 11 gigawatts. No? But the question still remains, how much is battery storage so that in that transition, we can put that in? No? I've not heard the response. Just like when I asked Lino how much is nuclear, I did not hear a response. No? But in any event, no, the big question really, especially for the young ones, no, is can they afford whatever plans we do in the government, no, that energy mix? Always the issue is affordability, no, reasonable cost. That's why while we talk about security, safety, reliability, at the end of the day, no, we need to address that, right? But okay, I'll give to Lino first, and then Doc Aloy, and then Froilan.
Again, just to qualify my response on price, because we don't have a basis. So we know what they did in other countries, but you cannot copy. You can say that that's the cost for us. It's going to be different, right? And it's very risky to say a number which we don't have a basis on. So that's number one. Number two, on just a reaction on uranium. By the way, I'm not here to say this is the best, or as I've said, we are for security, affordability, reliability, and least impact to the environment. Just to react on uranium, the thing about uranium fuel, no, is that even if you double it, it has very little impact on the LCOE because it uses so little as compared to coal. If you double the price, it impacts the cost, or more so for gas. Because for gas, 70% of your LCOE is on the fuel, not on the capital cost. Again, economic students, please check that up. It's something that you can review and maybe help us also understand.
Doc Aloy, you wanted to add something before I...
Several facts. 70% of the world's energy is produced by 8 countries. Something like that. I mean, more or less. Why should we only, the last time I checked we only contribute about 0.7% of the CO2. Bakit tayo ang parihirapan? Bakit tayo ang maghihirap? Yung malaking bumubuga ang dapat silang mauuna. So if we want to have transition, they went through this phase of development. By the way, I have to acknowledge just one bit. There's in the audience, Mr. Joseph Yap did a study that the closure of the BNPP cost the GDP, contrafactual is ibang-iba sana ng GNP. Pero yun ang isang issue. Tapos pangalawa, regarding affordability, the median Filipino family has maybe one refrigerator, maybe pays 2,000 or 3,000 pesos for the electricity. If their take-home pay is 20,000, that's 10% of the take-home pay. We should not compare on kilowatt per hour. Kasi kung mayaman ka, babayaran mo yan. But if you pay 10% of your take-home pay and use this metric, go to every country, tanungin mo, magkano binagastos as a percent of your take-home pay? You will see it is oppressive. Ang mahal talaga ng kuryente. 2019, nag-survey si DOE, 79% ng mga Pinoy is open to nuclear. And I think that's because of the high cost of electricity. You know, it's so unbelievably expensive. And when I was in Korea some years ago, katabi nung Cory 2, there was kilometers of manufacturing because of low cost. Those are the industries that left because of the high cost of electricity. Parusa talaga ang mga kuryente. Thank you.
All right, Foy, you want to add that before I call on...
I have a good news for Paul. Good news for Paul. We are going to build the largest solar plus battery in the world. No? We're going to build...
How big is that? How big is that?
3,500 megawatt solar plus 4,000 megawatt hour battery in Nueva Ecija. No?
And how much is that per kilowatt hour?
I think 7+ pesos. Because of the battery.
Okay.
But it will provide a steady power for 12 hours for the next, I think, 20 years. For the next 20 years. 12 hours now? Yeah, mid-merit. It's a mid-merit.
So transmission line not an issue because it's battery storage. It is with battery storage?
Yes, it is with battery storage.
Okay.
Solar plus battery connected to the high voltage grid. Hopefully by 2026, a partial of that, and then 2027, full capacity already. But I beg to disagree with you with your statement that we will go 100% RE. No? Based on current technology, and even in the foreseeable future, 100% RE is not possible yet. From my professional opinion, no? We really need a stable and reliable power to complement the intermittency and variability of RE. I think it is happening already in Germany, no? Because they commissioned their coal plant, their nuclear plant. Now they have problems and exporting power from neighboring countries like France. Maybe in the future that is possible, but now, maybe in the next 10 years, no, it's not possible yet.
Okay. We are in UP School of Economics. Our basic principle here is law of supply and demand. Nonoy, now that coal is being phased out, naturally, prices of coal will go down. And then people will start saying, let's shift back to coal because it's cheaper. Well, what do you see in your view, no, in the next few years? Because you mentioned also uranium going up.
Related to that first, as an economist, I follow not only growth but also inflation. One thing I noticed is that food inflation is now high, Europe, especially in the Philippines. And one thing I noticed is that as more land is converted from rice field to solar, food inflation is higher. Like, for instance, we have the 19-year low inflation as of yesterday, no? 3.1, but food inflation is 3.5%. And if you look at the first time, look at the website ni Ayala, they have solar in Ayat. It's a rice field. Or even the one that was shown by Liveste, no, that before was purchased now by the Metro Pacific, it's a rice field. So a large, here's the land economics. If you want 100 megawatt of power in a coal, maybe you need only 10 hectares. But for solar, 1.5 hectares per one, you need 150 hectares. And because 100 hectares of solar, because low capacity factor, you need about 500 hectares to have really 100 megawatt peak. So 10 hectares for coal, 500 hectares for solar, and maybe for nuclear, maybe 0.5 hectares, no? So that's one damage, one economic damage that we are saying is the impact on food inflation as more land is converted into solar. And I think that people are not prepared to, maybe people are not prepared to accept that future reality. So we really have to stick to fossil fuel plus nuclear.
All right. Froilan, the 3,500 megawatts, is that ground mounted or some floating solar?
Ground mounted.
All ground. So that's what Nono is saying. No? We will
Yeah.
use that land for agriculture and convert it to
Not all. Actually, it's a raw land. Not
raw land. So it's
a
not
rice field, rice
agricultural
field.
land.
I've been there.
Nakita ko sa website kaya from the SPNAC,
Right.
solar, it's a rice field.
Rice field. Okay.
Flat rice field.
All right. That's something for the DA and DAR to look into. No, under the local government code, they are actually limited, no, to allowing industrial land, no, to be converted. No, there's a limitation. Yes, Paul.
On the case that Dr. Loy mentioned, no, that's true. Even though that we have a common problem with climate change, there should be common but differentiated responses. We are not responsible for this climate crisis. It's the developed countries. And true, we should be given space to develop. That's why we're saying that there should be a transition. And nobody's saying that we turn off all the power plants now. But there should be a clear plan on when we want to phase out of coal and gas. And we do. We actually do. And transitioning, we're using with transition gas and transition fuel with gas. But it has to be clear that it's a transitioning out of fossil fuel. That should be clear. It's not, maybe not 2050, maybe longer. But it has to be clear that we have to get it out, okay? And the developed nations have to do it first. Because that's they caused this. We're practically so small, we didn't do anything, even if we use 100% coal.
Right.
So, okay, that should be clear. But then, but when we talk about what's happening now, in the transition that's happening to this, to renewable energy, is that the transition we're experiencing now is not something that we would call equitable and just. Okay? We get problems like agricultural lands being converted, I don't know if it's even legal, into solar power plants, or even indigenous communities being mined for their copper, for their lithium, for the batteries and storage of, So that's a transition that we do not want. That's why we want a rapid, equitable, and just transition. Not just a transition na basta, but a just that is may justisya. Okay? So with that, we actually have worked out a set of parameters and principles we call the guardrails for this transition. So there are 10 principles there, which include the concerns brought about by Sir Nonoy. They're using agricultural lands, so it becomes an issue versus of RE and food. It shouldn't be, because there are other choices as they've been doing in some mountainous areas that are not being used or whatever reason, but it shouldn't be IP lands, unless with their consent, okay? But the point is, if we're doing that transition in a rapid, equitable, and just manner, subscribing to the parameters and principles towards this, the guardrails, we call it the guardrails, then the transition shouldn't be a problem. It considers issues about labor, displacement, transition minerals, pricing, social services. Because all of these things have to be considered when talking about this transition. So I would have wanted to share, maybe I could share with the Secretariat the guardrails, no, so that everybody can have an idea what we want, what we mean when we say just transition. Because otherwise, it's true. We will lose food in favor of solar power plants. We will lose birds in favor of windmills. Diba? But that's not the point. These things can be avoided. They can be mitigated as much as we can if we subscribe to certain principles that ensure rapid, equitable, and just transition to that 100% RE systems down the line. That's all.
All right. Okay, Paul, I think what I heard from you, rapid, equitable, just, but you're looking for actual phase out of coal. That is what is lacking, is what you're saying. There's actually a plan to phase out. 100%.
What we would want is a faster, no? Pero there's
Okay.
actually a plan. Yeah.
All right. With a phase out, complete phase out. All right. Okay. Because I saw also a nuclear roadmap. No? We actually, you know, except for this new administration, the DOE, we've had so many roadmaps. No? Too many, in fact. And until now, I've not seen the road. Anyway, I think that opens up to questions, no? From the audience. I'm seeing a lot, no? And I see 10 hands already raising. Yes, sir. The gentleman in blue-green polo shirt. Please state your name, sir.
Yes,
before
sir.
you ask the
Good
question.
afternoon. I'm Mr. Rodolfo Plopino. I'm connected with the Electric Co-ops. I'm from Occidental Mindoro. I was the previous board president. And we met Dr. Arcilla in Iloilo, sir. My question is nuclear energy renewable?
All right. Is nuclear...
All right, very good question. De facto it is. You know why? Because first, we are now able to recover uranium from ocean. We have experiments at PNRI, and hopefully this year you will see. So the only problem is the cost, because the ocean has a unlimited amount of uranium. Now, uranium is far more common than coal, especially in continents. Mas marami pong uranium. That's why sabi nga, kung tumaas man ang price ng uranium, the price of the electricity coming from it hindi ganun kataas. Kasi because of the energy density. So, pwede siyang gawing renewable. Ang problema lang, yung classification. Will it be classified so that it can get all the benefits? But technically, it can be because of the potential of getting uranium from the ocean.
And does that deplete? No? By definition,
No.
renewables never deplete.
It will, you know, until the concentration is ppb, it cannot deplete the ocean. I mean, you know, for 1 billion years, they've been there, so you cannot deplete it. It's parts per million. And the ocean is it's a huge amount of...
Okay.
So,
All right. Yes, sir.
One
Yes.
last, sir. Nuclear is a base load. Power source, it's a base load. The peaking load and the intermittent power or mid-merit are the renewables. Solar, wind, can only produce for 12 hours. So definitely, tama yung sabi ni Sir sa Viralco. We need base load power. And base load power is based on coal, nuclear, biomass, not solar, not other sources of renewable.
Geothermal and hydro. kasama.
Geothermal and hydro, yes. But hydro is threatened by climate change.
Hydro dam, sir.
May
The
problema.
pump storage and the hydro dam, not run-of
Yeah,
river.
because of the climate change, bumababa po yung level ng mga hydro. Run-of river water, bumababa. It's our experience in Mindoro now.
Yeah.
Wind, kapag walang araw, wala yung wind, tigil yung mga wind power namin. Onshore. So my question, sir, is, I am from an off-grid area. The Special Nuclear Committee now is in my town, San Jose, Occidental Mindoro. Based on our experience, that most expensive power is no power. Yes. We had 20 hours brownout in February to April, suffering 89,000 consumers. Now, since September, we have the highest rate in the world.
Sir, why is that? What are you relying on now in terms of power?
bunker and diesel.
And has the co-op not contracted power?
Yes, because we have a monopoly supplier.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it at that. I think
Sir,
normally, I would say, isumbong mo kay Tulfo. In this case, isumbong nyo sa ERC.
Di ba, tinatanong ko si Prof. Arcilla kasi when we were in Iloilo, he was telling that the disposal of the uranium fuel is through boring 2 kilometers under the sea or under...
No,
underground. So, yung pa rin po yung safety measure ng fuel, uranium
Alright.
fuel.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, nuclear waste. Let me just say 1 minute on nuclear waste, because nuclear waste will be there for 10,000 years. So that's beyond the normal range of governments. So the current paradigm of nuclear waste is to isolate it from human activity. And the way to do it is to bury it very deep below, either through mine repositories or drilled boreholes. And you put engineered barriers on it. So which country is doing this? Finland is constructing its nuclear waste repository. The US is already operating one, but it's for military waste. Kung sa atin, pagtanungin ako, saan nyo ilalagay yung nuclear waste? I will choose an island, halos walang tao, deep borehole. Our geothermal wells drill 3 kilometers deep, plug it with bentonite, and it's there as if it didn't exist. It's important to define the nuclear waste disposal at the beginning of the nuclear program, because yan ang problema in the Western world. Dinelay nila yung
waste, no?
Thank you.
That was my question earlier about the jeepney. Where do I park it? So we will park it there.
Yeah, that's it.
Under the
it's-
ground.
Yeah.
Okay,
Deep,
all right.
deep, and it's not just underground. It should be, and there are studies on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doc, so far my key takeaway when it comes to safety and security, what we're saying here is do not worry as long as Doc Arcilla is alive.
And that will not be for long. I'm 62.
Well, Doc, we have a problem with that. You have to be
No, no,
alive
no.
in the next
I
50
have-
years.
I have brilliant students. I mean, I have many sins in my life, but one thing is I have developed very good students. I mean, they are much better than me.
All right, okay. But you have to be alive for the next 50 years. All right. The gentleman in red shirt, because I saw him earlier. No? And then, just raise your hand later on. Please identify yourself and then ask your question briefly.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Unico Bautista. I'm currently affiliated at the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute. So I'd like lang to mention a brief introduction of myself because I have a strong interest in nuclear energy when I was young.
Estudyante niyo ba to, Doc? Okay. All right, okay.
So this interest actually led me to study nuclear engineering at the University of Tokyo and study my PhD in UP Diliman at the energy engineering. And my interest is actually on power plants, on small nuclear power plants, small SMRs. Now, with this experience, I have no question on safety of nuclear power because I have studied it. And actually, the cost of nuclear power, kaya siya malaki yung cost niya is because of safety, sa safety ginagamit. Now, looking at the slides of the USEC Garin kanina, on the timeline of nuclear program, the focus is on legislation and regulation. Well, I think there's one important aspect of nuclear energy that was not given a priority, which is equally important. This is funding and financing. Our experience in the Philippines is that when the BNPP was completed in 1985, the Filipinos are still paying debt to the US until 2007. And currently, 2 nuclear power projects in the world has doubled its price because of overrun costs, delayed in the construction. These are in the US and in the UK. The additional cost is being shouldered by the government, which are taxes of the people. Now, my question is, to USEC Garin, to the private companies, and to our leaders in the country, what kind of policies do you have in mind so that any additional cost because of delayed nuclear plant construction will not pass down to the Filipino people? In simple terms, how do you plan to protect our taxes so it will not be used as bayad utang or bayad interest? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nico. You, Garin, maybe should answer that question, ma'am.
It's a good question. We just finished an agreement with the USID for us to study that, because I do understand nobody will invest in our country in nuclear power if we do not have that covered. Hindi lang kasi yan funding of your project. It's the risk that's involved. And if the risk is too high, nobody will lend you money to build a nuclear power plant. Nobody will invest here if they will just basically lose money. And it limits their liability also. So it's a good question. And it's something that I do, for me, dapat kasi niyan, it's incorporated in the law already. Na nandyan na. Right now, it's still being deliberated in the Senate, na sana ma-include siya. On what type of policy do we... I would diplomatically answer you, let's leave it to the wisdom of the legislators, because that's their, that's their decision. Pero one question that we are still grappling with is, in terms of funding and financing and liability, ano yung role ng government? So that's something that we asked international organization to study for us. Before it was NAPOCOR, but that was a different situation before. So kailangan talaga, no, if you don't get the government involved in a nuclear project, and it takes 10 years or 15 years to build one, and then you change presidents, and they say, no, we don't want anymore. So they are asking for sovereign guarantee all the time, whether it's a domestic investor or an international investor. So those are things pa na policy-wise we still have to arrive at. We're continuing the discussion, and thank you for the question. Tama ka, yun talaga yung medyo keeps me awake at night, the funding and financing. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Yusek Sharon. You know, that's always a question, no? Because worldwide models actually have sovereign guarantees. Right? So that's a big for nuclear. No? And we all know under EPIRA that's no longer allowed under the law. So there needs to be an overhaul there. No? Doc Aloy, 1 minute because we only have 5 minutes for...
Regarding convention, there's a convention called supplementary compensation. It's a treaty. If there's an accident, that the victims will be paid immediately, independent of litigation.
All right, so that's more for insurance, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things, but it's complicated. I mean, it's not.
But developers usually ask for sovereign guarantees. I think that's what Nico was referring to, which is actually a question also online, no? That was asked, no? Sovereign guarantees, but you need to change the law, all right, to consider it. But anyway, Yusek Sharon said they're looking at it, and let's see. No, but Nico's concern is we don't want to be paying for it again. That was the experience with Bataan Nuclear Power Plant. All right. Can we, maybe 3 more questions, although I see around 10 hands. Sir, the shirt in pink. Yes, sir. And then I'll call 2 more. I see 2 more other hands. Yes, sir. Please state your name and please ask your question quickly because we're only here until 5 p.m.
Hi, my name is Ray Marquez. I'm with the CSRO. Ang question ko lang is, don't you think that your metric for measuring the safety of nuclear power misleading? You know, you're looking at deaths per terawatt hour. We're very familiar with Chernobyl and Fukushima. We had several thousand people living in Chernobyl in 1985. How many people live there now? 0. Fukushima, the same thing, several thousand in 2010. Ngayon, 0. It's actually, when a nuclear disaster happens, it wipes out the whole city. Whole communities are evacuated, uprooted. Bigla kang mawawala doon sa home mo, mawawala yung mga kaibigan mo, no? Yung mga kakilala mo, ma-uproot. So even worse, it's like exploding a nuclear bomb on the city. Mas mabuti pa nga sa Hiroshima, they were able to rebuild. Until now, Fukushima and Chernobyl are still dead. No? So, ang point ko, hindi lang yung deaths ang hinahanap natin. It's actually the lives destroyed, no, by a nuclear disaster, which I think is very significant.
All right, so you're suggesting that we look at other parameters to measure safety.
Okay.
No? Okay, all right. Yes, Doc Kaloy.
I agree with that because that's only one metric.
Right.
But I also would like to emphasize the advancements in nuclear technology. For example, do you know why nuclear plants have these containment structures? Because of the potential risk of meltdowns. The most advanced is, instead of putting it in a structure, they have put the protection in the fuel itself. Those are called the TRISO fuels. So the fuels are not capable of meltdown. This is an example of the U.S. nuclear corporations. And they are going to put up a demonstration reactor in the University of Illinois, where I did my PhD, sa campus nila. And they offered to put one at PNRI. Anyway, we will see if UP agrees.
Doc Aloy, how young are you now?
I'm 62 years old.
62. So we will see Doc Aloy until 112. Doc Aloy, you have to outlive all of us. I see two more questions. Yes, sir, the gentleman at the back. Yes, sir, the one raising his hand. And then the next one will be you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose. Good afternoon. My name is Jose J. Santa Barbara. I am a Participatory Action Research Specialist, Research Economist and Missionary based at UP. I like to address my question to the Undersecretary. Noy, I used to see you here while we were still in college, and we studied. There's a cost in everything. So nobody is asking. I mentioned something about what's happening in Ukraine right now. Ukraine has the largest nuclear plant in Europe. So the thing is, Russia came into Ukraine, and then the Russians invaded a nuclear power plant. So my question is this. The Ukraine forces cannot enter the plant because what will happen is this. Might be this. The moment there would be a leakage in the coming from the nuclear plant, considering it's the largest in Europe, the wind factor is involved because the radioactive material will be spread all across the European continent. So my question is, are you prepared to face such risk as this? And my other question is, have you considered, this is for you, the depreciation involved in assets? Every asset tends to depreciate.
All right.
Thank
you, Jose, for the question. Let me...
just for the
yes, just for the first question.
Let me, I go to the IAEA frequently. You're talking about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in Ukraine, right? That was controlled by Russia. They allowed the IAEA to go there, and there are inspectors there because Russia is a signatory to the IAEA. If they start doing something there, a bombing of a nuclear plant is what's called that, the crime against humanity. Okay, so it's being secured by the IAEA. That's being considered. Although a state-perpetuated action is actually an interesting point, and that's being considered in the design of nuclear power plants. Depreciation is not my.
All right.
I'm depreciated, but someone else.
Noy. You was asking about depreciation, or was that for you, Froilan? Noy, but Noy, it's Noy O plus, no? He was asking about depreciation of assets. Of assets, nuclear assets. Or maybe we'll set that question aside for him to answer privately later on. No, and that's just make sure it has to do with depreciation of assets. No? Okay. Nuclear assets that way. Okay, we'll send you the questions later. The gentleman in blue shirt, and then last question will be from the one in light blue shirt. Sir, the dark blue shirt first, yes? And then you will be the last one.
Thank you very much. My name is Gage, and I'm a student here at the UP School of Economics. I am of the understanding that the handling of anything remotely nuclear requires tremendous care and rigorous discipline. And to this end, I would like to ask what amount or kind of upskilling is necessary to sufficiently train the labor force in the ways of handling nuclear energy. And as a follow-up question, beyond the necessary upskilling, what strategies could we employ to improve the public perception of nuclear energy? How do we get the people to trust the vanguard?
All right. Well, I made a pitch for Doc Caloy to live for 50 years.
Anyway,
No, that's
so very
one.
quickly, kasi past
But
5
Caloy?
o'clock. Okay, handling of nuclear materials is a fairly standard thing. If you want to learn more, you can just cross over to PNRI. We have a nuclear training center. And then we, by the way, UP will introduce nuclear engineering soon. Alam mo na mahirap mag-course, but MAPUA is also, there are some other courses. We're already teaching nuclear courses here in UP Diliman. So there are efforts to do that. And our research reactor is for training. If you want, I invite everybody here to visit it so that you see, this is one way to destigmatize nuclear. Nuclear also works for medicine. Cancer is treated by nuclear power. Agricultural productivity, preservation of many things. Kasi pang problema, pag tinanong mo nuclear, ang nasa isip agad bomba. And it's not helped because, you know, Hollywood is there. May Chernobyl, may Oppenheimer, di ba? May Tom Cruise. How do you fight against Tom Cruise, right? So, yun po yung problema.
Okay.
But there are many other uses po, sir. Thank you.
Last question from the gentleman in blue. And while you're walking, I'd like to just shout out to Lawrence of Meralco. He has a question, but Lawrence, I'll just give it to Doc Caloy. And also from Maricon Esguerra from, this must be the Senate, LBRMO. Shout out to you. Thank you for your questions. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Nikki Solis. I'm a law student, but my undergrad was here. In UPSE.
Nikki probably is my student at 5 p.m. later, right, Nikki? All right. You get,
Yes,
you get 10 points for asking that question.
He's delaying the class.
Yes. Yes, Nikki.
I would like to ask questions to Mr. Oplas and Pagaduan. So, Mr. Oplas, you identified a link between the move away from carbon and nuclear in EU countries and their low or even negative growth. So I would like to ask, do you think, what's the causal relationship? Do you think that there is a causal relationship between those two? And to Mr. Pagaduan, assuming that there is a trade-off between growth and compliance with our duty to mitigate climate change, for us, is that something which is worth it? Like, is any amount of sacrificed growth worth compliance with those COP promises?
Yes, the actual data is from the Institute, no, Statistical Review Board, and then what I only made comparison is that over the same period, the trend of countries that they are decarbonizing compared to the same period where on the economic GDP growth, there is inverse relation. That's why I saying that I'm laughing at what the Europeans are doing. Okay, they shoot themselves on the left foot, then they recover and shoot themselves on the right foot. Okay, and then that's why I said, okay, go ahead, decarbonize more, degrowth more, deindustrialize more, and come to the Philippines. Your companies, you know, sometimes it's not so much that we are doing so good to attract investment, just doing so bad. Okay, we just, I always say, when people self-destruct, we should not interrupt. Let them keep shooting themselves in the foot and then let the companies come to the Philippines. But we should not do what the mistakes, why the companies are leaving, they're here. Now, as I reported, the Italians are already knocking on Philippines. They didn't talk much. Then the Germans also is not trying to come here. I think we should be watching the French and British companies. And come on, degrowth more. We will be clapping you. Decarbonize will be clapping you. Net zero more. And come to the Philippines.
All right. Your other question, Nikki, is for Paul, right? Paul?
Okay. Make no mistake na. I'm not calling for the Philippines to stop using coal now because we have common but differentiated responses to the climate crisis. The Philippine government already outlined the plan on when to phase that out, when to use the transition fuel, when we will have 40%, or was it in 2040, X% of it. That's the same plan. What I'm saying is that maybe we could do it faster, maybe earlier, maybe more, because the world needs to do it, but it's not our primary responsibility. As I've mentioned earlier, it's them. They caused this climate crisis. We're just point something of a 0 point something. It's not us and other developing countries in the global south. So that should be clear that if anybody should face out of these destructive technologies, it's them. And it will actually not impact their economies not much. They don't rely on that for their economies. They're so diversified in the first place. They can quit tomorrow and it's not going to impact them too much. Maybe there will be degrowth or anything. But the point is, it's practically in line with what the government is already doing, and we're just asking it to be more aggressive and stop focusing on false solutions and dangerous distractions and focus on what's something that's already available there. Ma'am Rose was telling me stories that neighbors are installing solar power panels. The School of Economics is considering to solarize the building. These are things that we can do today. You can shop on Shopee today and get your own solar systems, solar power systems. And the technology is there. The policies are in general there. You don't need new laws. You don't need new... We might appreciate more incentives, tax breaks or anything for that. But the point is, I'm not saying we should stop all of this now. It's part of the energy mix, I agree. But let's do it faster. Because the world needs it if we want to keep that 1.5 degree target. Otherwise, your fears of having children are true. Because there won't be a future for our children. That's the point. You phase out of that. The government agrees with that. Practically, the world agrees with that. COP28 said so. Okay? Now we're just pushing for those, being more aggressive about these targets and not waste resources on things that may take, I'm sorry, it's going to take 10 years. That's 10 years too late. With the policies, the infrastructure, everything, it's so long. So if we're going to use a couple billions of pesos for something, let's do it with RE, solar wind now.
Okay, thank you, Paul. You know, Paul, as you know, government put up for auction 11 gigawatts last June. They're doing annual auction. There will be another set of auction this June. I think the appeal of Paul is make it 20 gigawatts. No? But, you know, where we are now, they've been pushing really hard. No? So we appreciate that. All right, we're way beyond the time. I've been getting texts from the organizers. Let me just thank, before I thank the panel members, one, let me thank the UP School of Economics Program in Development Economics Alumni Association and the Philippine Center for Economic Development. No? And finally, of course, the members of the panel. No? Thank you, Doc Aloy, Paul, Lino, Froilan, Nonoy Oplas, no? And of course, USEC Sharon Garin. I think the key takeaway here is we all want optimal energy mix, no? One that will address your concerns about affordability, but also at the same time, safety, security, reliability. But also let me cite what Paul has been saying. No? When we do the transition, no, it has to be just, equitable, no? To make sure that we all protect Mother Earth at the same time. All right. With that, thank you very much. I hope people learn from us. No? And yes, Nonay needs to thank somebody.
I just want to thank in the PDEA. Because PDEA has a project called PDEA Room here in the school, and we approached 3 companies to give some donation, and they did so. We'd like to thank Meralco, Aboitiz Power, and Robinson's Retails for giving not for this event, but for that future PDEA Room here in the School of Economics. Thank you.
Thank you, Nonoy. And of course, my class, I'll see you at the law school. Thank you. Good afternoon. Wala no, first day. Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yusek. Uy, kami dyan tayo, picture tayo. Yusek.
Dali pa itong diskusyon ng tuloy ko may part 2 to. Si Yusek, oo.
Happy Chinese New Year.
Alam mo, magaganda yung mga tanong ng mga estudyante. No?
Plus 10 na yan.
Hello. 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 We'd like to invite everyone outside. We will be serving refreshments and snacks. Thank you for participating today.
Thank you. Salamat ha.
Salita. Oo nga, alam ko yun eh. Kaibigan ko si Popo eh. See you in a second.